Good morning, Unity of DC, Unity of Washington, DC. I am Reverend Celeste Frazier, and it is my honor, my privilege to be with you this morning. I know my body isn't physically there, but my spirit is certainly with you and aligned with you and your spirits. So, good morning. Reverend Sylvia has been doing kind of a series. Maybe she doesn't want to call it a series, but I notice spiritual is the word before each one of her topics. So I offer you today spiritual power as my topic. Now, I know this is a New Thought church community, but please indulge me because I'm going to tell you about the thing those other people believe in. It's just a moment of old thought, just to make a point. Okay? Y'all good? Everybody good? All right. A priest was approached one night by Satan himself. "Do not be afraid," said Satan. "I have an offer to make. I will make you tremendously powerful, famous, and rich in return for just one small favor: half of your ability to hear." The priest was stunned. "Let me think about it for a few days," he said. So the next morning, the priest requested to meet with the bishop. "Your Excellency, I need your advice for a temptation I have been given." And he told him about the encounter, and the bishop was shocked. "A deal with Satan? Do not do it. It will destroy your soul." And so, the priest was not convinced. So the bishop arranged a meeting with the archbishop. "Your Excellency, this priest has an urgent matter he needs advice about." He told the story. The archbishop bowed his head in silent prayer, and after a few moments, he responded, "Firstly, your hearing is a gift from God. It would be forbidden to sacrifice any part of it. Secondly, a deal with Satan? Never do it." But the priest still wasn't convinced. He was imagining all the wealth, the fame, the power he would get. So the archbishop requested an audience with the Pope. So the three of them came into the papal office in great awe. They sat, and the archbishop spoke. "Your Holiness, this priest has a terrible temptation and needs advice." And the Pope says, "Sorry, could you speak a little louder?" So you see, we are prone to temptations for power, for fame, for wealth, you know. And sometimes it's not even that grandiose. Sometimes we just need the power to be able to stand in our own truth, to stand in our own good, to stand in our own grace. So the other day I was feeling kind of powerless. I was overwhelmed. I was feeling lack. I was feeling clueless. I was feeling alone. And it's because I'm about to take a big step in my life. And, there's concerns about what I'm leaving behind. And there's questions about what it will be like, where I'm going. And so, I was in that funk, right? And then Reverend Sylvia called me. "Whoa, she's kind of busy. Why is she calling, right?" I'm sure this spirit sent her to tell me that everything was going to be okay. Now, those weren't the words that she used, but it was the intention behind the words. And so I don't even know how she knew that that was what I needed to hear. But it was exactly the prescription I needed when I hadn't even spoken a word. Didn't even say nothing about what I was going through. We speak many words in our thoughts, right? We are always talking to God. Now, sometimes we're listening to God. Hopefully, we're listening to God more than we're talking to God. But God is always listening to us. I don't know how she does it. But I don't need to know because I'm not the supreme being. I am an emerging being. Because I am emerging, I can notice when something is developing by means of me. And as I surrender to the divine within, then things happen. Today, one of my clients called for prayer. I was kind of wondering why she hadn't responded to my call the day before. And God provided the answer. When she called, she told me she was in the hospital and without her phone. And she needed to know what was going on with her body and why she wasn't being released from the hospital. And I prayed with her. And just as I was finishing, the doctor walked into her room. Now, these are examples about the power of God. It is omnipresent. But we need to pay attention about the timing and how things unfold. Ernest Holmes defines power as the energy by which everything lives. And he talks about the creative medium of spirit as the great mental law of the universe. Our power is in our thoughts. That is how we use our divine power. Our thoughts set things in motion, right? So when we doubt our good, we interrupt the flow. The good still comes, but it may be delayed or disjointed, fragmented, or disorganized, unconnected. That's what happens when we're all over the place. You ever get focused on a project or an intention and then your house gets in disarray? It's probably just me. But in case it sounds familiar to you, let me tell you how that turns out. You already know. When you need something and you can't find it, it's because of the disorder. I'm not talking about an eating disorder or even a psychological disorder, although that could apply in some cases. But I am talking about leaving the order, the divine order. I have learned that disorder costs me time, costs me money, could cost me credibility. Now, if any of you were scrambling around at the last minute this week trying to get your taxes in before the extension, you know what I'm talking about, right? And order's heaven's first law. That's what Alexander Pope said. He was a poet. I'm a poet. I know that poets tell the truth because we give it exactly as we get it, right? It makes sense. Just as we are driven to do what we need to do, at some point, you've got to get your stuff together, to put it mildly, because what I've discovered this week is that having things out of order is a denial of chaos. It's confusion, disarray, because you're split. Choose ye this day whom you shall serve, God or mammon. Charles H. Spurgeon was a preacher from the Reformed Baptist tradition from the late 1800s. And he was called the Prince of Preachers. He talked about observing the marching of an army of locusts. He said he was amazed beyond measure with the marvelous regularity of their advance. Someone named Agar, who must have seen them, said, "The locusts have no king, yet they go forth, all of them by bands." And the wonder is that creatures comparatively so insignificant in size and so low down in the scale of intelligence should maintain much more than martial order, both in their long flights and in their devouring marches. Now, we may say the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th are kind of like that, right? It looked like they had no king because they didn't see him. And we may think, how low are those people on the scale of intelligence? But there was determination there. There was a commitment there. And hear me now, I am not condoning those actions by any means. I was appalled, frightened, disappointed, disgusted. I mean, the whole spectrum. As I worked from home and I saw the unthinkable. The order in their chaos was a commitment to a purpose. It was relentless, even though it was dead wrong. The King James Version of the Bible says, "Choose you this day whom ye shall serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord." This day, not tomorrow. Who will you serve? Today, you may decide to be lazy and not take care of business. You may have one day to do that, or maybe 2/3 of a day to do that. One day, you may be committed, driven even, to serve God. But if one of your values or systems are compromised, are you going to forget your intention? Are you going to forget who you are? Are you going to give up and not vote based on what seems like the destruction of democracy in terms of how things are playing out? What would Jesus do? What I love about Jesus is his clarity. So last night on my way home from the theater, I passed by a place called the Clarity Clinic. I said to my friend, I need to go there. I looked it up this morning and it was a mental health clinic. My Lord. Ernest Holmes says in the Science of Mind textbook, healing is clear thinking. He says, say to yourself, God is all there is. There's only one life. And when you're praying, and if there's any point which you're slightly unclear, stop. Stop praying. Just stop. Go back and study what you know about God. Build your argument upon what you get in meditation, about what comes through in your prayer awareness, about what you're reading about in a spiritual book or publication, and keep at it until you discover and confirm for yourself and get a clear consciousness of the presence. That's what I do. Get clear and get clean. You may be able to go one day without bathing, more than one day, and it's problematic. 3 days, and there's a crisis. There is no fake it until you make it. You have to be consistent with getting clear and getting clean, right? So when I say get clear, I mean get freed up from the paralyzing fear. Get freed up from the stifling fear. Stifling is like you can't breathe, right? Stifling is when you're suffocating. Stifling is when you feel constrained or oppressed, right? Beaten down. And it really doesn't have to be prompted by an event. We've got enough trauma in us, we've got enough trauma in our lives from our ancestors, from your mama, from her mama. You may have enough trauma from your family or from the people on your job, or have mercy, anybody that's in your house, So it didn't have to happen today or yesterday for you to get traumatized. We've inherited a lot of trauma that needs to be released. So it's important to know the changeless nature of God. When all of this is happening around us, when all of this is happening within us, you better know that no belief in limitation, no concept of fatalism, no dooming hell can govern you without your permission. Whether you're unconsciously giving them permission, tacitly giving them permission, or just frozen in separation. No, we can never be separated from God. But my Lord, we forget. I know fear comes. Lord knows I do. You might look at your bills and think, how in the world am I going to get out of this? But trust me, not answering the phone when the bill collectors call is not the answer. I know sometimes you may think, well, they're the enemy. They want me to give them something I ain't got. Don't have it, right? Why don't they leave me alone? But what if there's an angel at the other end of that phone? What if there's someone who wants to help you find a way out of no way? I'm not talking about solicitors who call. I'm talking about someone that you're already in relationship with due to the fact that you have an account with their business, right? So every yes is a contract. Every contract is a part of our journey to our divine destiny. We have to work it out because there's a law in motion. The law is omniactive, right? Always happening. So your spiritual gymnastics include, but they must go beyond prayer, meditation, tithing, service, and study. It's got to be including forgiveness. You know, we have to take care of our spirit beyond the walls of the church or the Zoom screen, right? Spiritual power is not bound by boundaries, borders, right? No state lines, no county lines. You know, so once you leave the parking lot today, don't forget your religion when someone cuts you off across the street from the church, right? In my latest book, Common Miracles, Frequent Illusions, I have a section called All Fear is Past and Only Love is Here. It was informed by A Course in Miracles, which I've studied for about 18 years. When you are willing to release a pain or a conflict, there's a neutral place where you can be and wait for God to reveal itself to you. You may even request God to reveal itself through the situation. Even if the thought is, I am not safe, you get to release that thought. Since love never leaves you, listen for the thought beyond the fear. And you will find the love that leads you away from the fear, away from the harm, and away from the false belief that your good was ever separate from you. I remember hearing the story about this guy going down the alley, and these gang members were coming toward him, and you know, something just made him just stay steadfast, and he, you know, keep walking, and the guy started running away in the opposite direction, and it was kind of bewildering to him. He didn't know what happened. Come to find out, he was talking to somebody who had talked to those guys, and they said, well, those, you know, those people that were with you, they showed up, you know, they were angels that even the guy who was alone couldn't see, but who needed to see the angels, even though they thought they were not angels, was enough. So God will reveal to us what we need, or God will reveal through us what we need, or God will reveal from us what we need. As long as we know that it is always available to us, then we can lean on that. So as I start to close, I want to recap a blessing that I have for you. It is not until the power of the word has come that the word is worthwhile. And what I mean by that is you don't have to talk just because a thought comes into your head. You can tell if it has the vibration of spirit. You know, if it's coming from the Most High, it's likely a new thought. You haven't known it before that moment. For another thing, it enriches you and you can feel it the moment you hear it. It's describable in an internal way, not necessarily that you have the capacity to share the words or the feeling, but you know it has impacted you. I know that about me because I know when I have those experiences of the divine that it takes me into a deeper awareness. It heightens my consciousness. And so what I know about surrendering to the Most High is that it will teach you more than you knew that you needed to know. It will show you its power, and in turn, your power, right? And it will allow you to know its grace. You don't have to go to a bishop or an archbishop or a pope to get the advice, because you know that you know. It lifts you into a greater understanding, and it will comfort you in the most peaceful and precious way. Let it. Please let it. It is such a blessing. I hold for each and every one of you that you focus on the power of spirit. I invite you to know your zeal, because you are enthusiastic about the spirit within you. Catch that fire. Because I know the omnipotence and the omnipresence of the divine. I invite you to know it too. I invite you to trust in its goodness. It is orderly, and it is in alignment with the highest and best for all concerned. Not just one party, but all parties. And because wholeness is a divine principle that we all share, I invite you to attend to your mental health by means of seeking clarity, by trusting the changeless love of God. Let the fear fall back into the nothingness from whence it tried to come, as love rises to greet you with its grace, holding you in love and freeing you to love. Namaste.